TGIF, it's a Friday, January 26, 2024. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that as the snow comes back in Thermopolis, you can always find yourself in hot water. Head to thermopolis.com to learn more. Well, pretty quiet weather coming on up, so you can see those guys there looking at the camera, looking at the weather. Well, after today, once this weather system moves out, it's going to be quiet weather for all folks, 2 legs and 4 legs. As we go into the weekend and as we get into early next week, we're going to see high pressure move in, and there really won't be a lot of weather going on. Pretty quiet. Really, from this weekend through Wednesday of next week, most of the West will enjoy above average temperatures, high pressure, and quiet weather conditions, as high pressure will dominate. Pacific air, mild Pacific air will come in. The Arctic cold will be locked up into Greenland and Alaska and the Northwest Territories, far, far from here. But as we go into next week, our confidence is growing. Getting more confident that this change in the weather we were talking about is going to come in late next week. Probably you're really going to feel it on the West Coast by late Wednesday into Thursday. By Friday and by Saturday, it looks like the Great Basin states, parts of the Rockies, parts of the High Plains, by next weekend, we'll be looking at a flip in the weather. The high pressure goes away, and those changes out in the Pacific Ocean we've been showing you are going to instigate a big change in the central and western United States. And we think this is going to be a really stormy part to the beginning of February. So the pendulum this winter really likes to swing. We have these quiet, warmer stretches. We have these things that just don't happen for a while. You think that maybe winter is not going to be here, or you maybe think winter's done, and then it comes right back on in again. And the pendulum is going to go the other way. So enjoy the next 5 to 6 days, because after that, it could be rough and tumble for a while. Great shot of a moon dog here earlier this week out of Laramie with the full moon out there. And those high Pacific clouds, really good opportunities to see things. Now, I want to show you this. Joe sent this taken from Elk Mountain early in the month of January. Now, for those of you familiar with Elk Mountain, Wyoming, along Interstate 80, one of the windiest places really around anywhere. This is where there's a natural terrain gap in the mountains that allow a lot of air to come through. But Elk Mountain is known for just spectacular opportunities to see how the wind flows over mountains and near mountains. And what we have here is a great time lapse that Joe put together. And I want to show you here of basically, if you watch, especially over the crest of Elk Mountain and then come on down to the east side there, you can just see the shape of the flow, the mountain showing the formation of the clouds as the air is forced up, cooling and condensing on the top of Elk Mountain. And it just shows you over time what the wind flow will be like on a bright, sunny, cold January day there. But you can see the wind flow, especially right there, coming over Elk Mountain. Thanks, Joe, for sending that on in. Just a real treat there to see something like that. Now, as we take a look at the satellite imagery this morning, we can see a lot of high and mid-level cloudiness coming on into the West Coast. But notice, it's not really going to go much further than this. This is the weak trough of low pressure that's coming through now. It's weakened considerably from where it was yesterday. There's going to be some snow showers in parts of Colorado early today. We have them out there this morning along some front range areas. This system will track across the south, moving away, while an area of high pressure right here is building in. So there's the weak low that's down in New Mexico and southern Colorado. That low right here I showed you off the West Coast, but this high right here is going to dominate. So through today, high pressure is going to start to build in from the west, low pressure moves out. So between now and into Sunday evening, this is where the moisture is going to be. This is all today, basically right here. These 2 areas of moisture is what's going to be happening here through the next 12 hours. Then moisture will be coming into the Pacific Northwest, but really having a hard time getting really past Idaho. The just onshore flow of Pacific moisture keeping those areas wet. Well, you can see through the weekend here, high pressure is pretty much going to be in control. Not much snowfall between now and Sunday night. And most of this, again, is going to be over the next 12 hours. There's that high pressure ridge right over near the Four Corners area. This is by Tuesday. So we're just going to roll along through the weekend and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably Thursday of next week. However, I'm going to show you the same graphic I showed you yesterday. It's been updated with new data, but you can see it's showing you the same thing we showed you yesterday, that a very strong, energetic and moist west-to-east jet stream is developing from Asia to North America across the Pacific. This is a giant stretch of real estate here. Now, it's all ocean, but this is a lot of miles, several thousand miles across. And when you have this much energy and moisture getting pushed across this part of the Pacific, to give you point of reference, so here's Hawaii, here's California, okay, here's back over to Japan. This historically, as we have mentioned before, a typical situation that you're going to see in a strong El Nino year. And this is really just adding a lot of energy to the equation, that once it gets pushed into North America, then things really begin to change. And you can see the waviness begin to form here by late next week. So this is by Friday. This is when the wave pattern, the flow isn't straight anymore, it gets wavy. So we have this large trough pushing into the West Coast. So by late next week, we're going to have heavy rain into California, heavy snow in the Sierra Nevada, and just a lot of wet pushing into areas along and west of the divide by Friday. What is likely going to happen, you see this low right here? It's going to break off from the main low and swing out like this. And if it happens, if it does this, sort of there's a separation between them, the Gulf of Mexico becomes wide open to entrain moisture into the low. Now, we don't have a lot of cold air from Canada yet, but we're going to have enough. So by Friday afternoon, this is by late Friday, you can see the advancement of the moisture coming on in. You can see the heavy rain in California. Look at Arizona here. Southern Utah into Las Vegas going to get wet. Boise going to get wet again. Spokane going to get wet again as this all comes in. But unlike what's happened this week, as the storms hit the West Coast and peter out, there's going to be enough energy that's going to get over the divide. And there it is. Now, this is by next Saturday. So we'll see what happens here. But I think something like this will. This would produce a really good opportunity for upslope into parts of Wyoming and Colorado. Remember, the air moves clockwise around a high. It moves counterclockwise around a low. So you have the wind patterns working together to draw up high humidity air. And you can see that. See this right here? This is the precipitable water forecast by next Saturday morning. We'll see what comes together. The message here is the potential is there for winter weather to return in about 6 or 7 days from now, after a quiet period of weather. So as we get into early next week, we'll be able to look at things more closely. But the big picture items, the things on from a large scale viewpoint of how the weather works when we see these El Nino patterns across the Pacific, while we can't give you any details right now, we can tell you that we see the signals of change. This is the Arctic oscillation forecast from the European model for the next 30 to 45 days. Notice we go into a negative Arctic oscillation right, well, this is by next Friday and Saturday. It happens right at that time frame. And then notice we stay in the negative territory, negative Arctic oscillation. When it goes below zero, this teleconnection, a large-scale view of things, shows a colder pattern for North America in the lower 48. So that is another signal. The Eastern Pacific oscillation, when it also goes into the negative phase, which also happens by late next week and next weekend, the control run of the model is very negative, but the overall average of all the model runs stays negative all the way through at least the second week of February. So despite the fact that there's very little going on, it's going to feel pretty warm, and you might think, where's winter? It's just taking a break. Don't worry, winter will come back starting late next week and next weekend. Have yourself a good weekend. We'll see you on